It is about 7 after 5. We have a quorum. And on the agenda, the only item this evening on the agenda is the interview of Mr. John P. Wilcox. Do I hear a motion for approval of the agenda?
So
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Before we begin, I want to inform the public that all candidates were provided with the interview questions last week. And Mr. Wilcox, as you're more than familiar since you've seen the questions, some of them are 2 parts. Okay. Mr. Wilcox is an Assistant Superintendent of Tallapoosa County Board of Education. He's been in education since 1988. We will begin the process with Mr. Otis Hill.
thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Wilcox, here we go. If you would, please tell us about your personal background, professional experience, your beliefs on public education, and why you're interested in being our superintendent.
Certainly. My background is, Mr. Wingate said, in public education began in 1988. I was a seasoned individual going to the classroom for the first time, of course, meaning that I was older as a teacher. Started teaching in 30 days later I turned 32, so I wasn't the rookie person, but I was a rookie teacher at that time. I've taught in the classroom for, at that time, 11 years, and the last couple of years I did dual duty there and as technology coordinator. Then I had the opportunity to move full-time as coordinator, and so I did. Moving on through, I moved once to Opelika for a 1-year appointment into Bullock County Schools for 2, and had a chance to go back home in 2004, and I did. I started as a director of operations, and then was appointed by the board as assistant superintendent 6-7 years or so ago. My belief in public education basically is that it's the hallmark, number one, of the country. The free public education is kind of unique to the United States, and our strengths as a community, as a state, nation, really depend on the strength of the public education that we provide. I am a wholehearted, 100%, full-blooded public education believer and supporter. My daughter obviously went through it and did quite well, and I did as well, so I figure if we did, anybody probably can. But I'm a strong believer in public education, what public education can do for the individuals that often they've not found elsewhere. My interest in this position is primarily built on the reputation of this system. As you may or may not know, there are 3 or 4 others that became available at the same time. And I chose not to apply for any of those because I knew some of your, historically, some of your superintendents. I did some research and saw, that the school system is a successful school system. And I think that given the opportunity, I could bring a fresh perspective and viewpoint, and together we can make a good thing even better. And I saw today that my suspicions were true. There are a lot of good things going on in the school system, and you should be proud of what's taking place in your schools. I was highly impressed. Even though there were so many, I won't say distractions, but departures from the norm for some of them, there was still good, strong teaching and good, strong learning going on in every school we visited. I was highly impressed.
Thank you. Okay, what do you consider to be the most important duties of the superintendent, and how do you see their role as superintendent as relate to the school board, employees, students, and the community?
I think the superintendent has to come across and has to be the leader of the school system. and the superintendent is going to be the face of the school system, whether they choose to or not. So the leadership abilities that that superintendent possesses is going to be what carries the school system. I think it comes into play, obviously, with all four factors that you mentioned, that, as a leader, the people in our schools have got to believe that what I'm bringing to them or asking them to help me do is going to be beneficial to our students, going to be beneficial to them. Students are going to see that I'm the leader, but I'm the person that they're going to see quite frequently in their hallways, and they know that they'll be able to talk to me about whatever the issues there are. We'll never, of course, get outside the chain of command, but I'll be approachable in that sense. The community, the same thing. I'm the person that, if I'm selected, I'm going to be the person that's naturally the first thought about when they're either praising or not praising the school system, and it's a role that doesn't just automatically fall on you to successfully. It's one that you have to cultivate and bring around to your side.
Okay. And what does the school board, in terms of your relationship with the school board?
My relationship with the school board is I think, of course, one of mutual respect, trust, working toward the same goal, and we may have some differences of opinion, and we're going to work those out. But we're going to work respectfully toward meeting all of our bottom line, which is what decision is going to be the best for our students.
What's your greatest professional disappointment, and what do you learn from that? And if you will, if you describe the accomplishment you're most proud of in your education.
Fortunately, I'll be honest with you, I had a hard time coming up with the greatest disappointment. But I finally decided that I've run across some educators who sometimes, quite frankly, are probably not where they should be and don't like children. And that being the case, they should leave. And I've run across a couple of those, and I have no problem, I had no problem telling them that they need to consider something different. Didn't make me particularly popular, but I wasn't particularly concerned about that either at the time, because the steps they were taking were just anti-student. It's somewhat of a superiority complex in some, to be honest with you. There are a couple things, and one is involved in both of these that I'm especially proud of. We have in my system now two alternative programs. One we call Crossroads, one we call Crossroads Plus. Crossroads is the behavior alternative program. Crossroads Plus is an academic alternative program. And I don't mind saying that many of the ideas there were borrowed from that building right behind here when Hope Academy was here. We visited here and 2 or 3 years ago, and I carried some ideas back with me. Last year, for instance, part of the credit recovery program, and I guess you'd call the other part of it the grade recovery. We had 15 students in our school system last year who graduated because of that program. They were able to, take a couple of extra courses. They were able to graduate, but otherwise wouldn't have. And in the system that our size, from the data standpoint, as far as graduation rate, that significantly affects that. Unfortunately, most of these kids would not have come back for those couple of credits that they needed, and they would have been part of our dropout rate too. And there were kids that just needed that little extra help, and I was able to give it to them, and that was especially a point of pride for me. Part of that group, this actually also involves one of those negative Nellies that I mentioned earlier. Involved a student who had failed a half-credit course in the first semester of school. And unfortunately, at her school, that course was not offered the second semester. So she lacked it and 2 other courses to be able to graduate. But she wasn't going to be able to get that, so she just quit coming to school. I heard about it, and as many of the school administrators would tell you, there's always problems with having workable numbers on students in our STI program. So none of the numbers worked. I worked around and finally, believe it or not, made contact with her on Facebook. Sent her a message, and I said, "Listen, I don't want you quitting. I've got something, that program that can help you." So she got in contact, came to school, came to Crossroads Plus, and recovered that credit from the half credit course, and then was able to take the other 2 courses she had to, and proudly was able to march in graduation ceremonies last May, and that. To be honest with you, gave me a great sense of pride, because that's why I'm in the business, and that one kind of hit home for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. One last question. What has been the biggest problem in community-school relations in your career, and what did you do about it? And if you will, describe some of the strategies that you use to promote parent and public support for school activities.
I'm often reminded when I think about this Ludlow porch. Most of you probably too young to remember Ludlow. Ludlow wrote a book about, the title was "Who Cares About Apathy?" And so apathy has pretty much been our problem with the school-community relationship. We're spread out in the county schools. We cover, gosh, I'd hate to say how many square miles just for the schools in Dayville alone, but so much more rural, and it's a difficult time to get parents involved. I've often said that in our schools we ought to have at least one kindergarten class at every school, even the high schools, so that PTO night we have kindergarten perform, and that parking lot in the auditorium would be full. And you do that after your business session, because that would get them there. We've tried a couple of things in our system, though, to try to bring back in some of the community members. Back to school day for business and community leaders that has been somewhat successful. It's I don't think that anything you ever tries is as successful as you want it to be. But the fact that there are those who are interested enough to come back into it, to come see what's going on, is a start. Now, I bang my head quite often on how I'm going to increase the parental involvement, other than what I think is the best thing, and that's to celebrate the success of their children, of people's children. It's just like, as a former newspaper person, I knew that if I ran Little League team pictures, my paper sales for that week were going to pick up, because I was celebrating those folks. And I think the same process or thought process, works here when we celebrate the success of our students. It does, for instance, greatly increase attendance at our board meetings when we're recognizing students and that kind of thing. So I think, it's if you get something that the students involved, those proud parents are going to be in there with them. And when you get them to the location, that's when you sign them up for other things. You commit them. You get what you can. It's been the way that we've been here. I think in the city system that I would assume, and you know what to say about assume, that sometimes you're wrong. Okay, and but that the proximity helps a bit in parental involvement, but it's not a be-all to everything. So you've still got to have some method to get them into your schools. And I don't look to do that alone. I know we've got some school administrators here, and I would certainly expect to be supportive of what they do to try to increase parental involvement as well. They know their people better than any of us do, and I think you have to call on them as well to help in that process.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We were talking about getting the people involved in community with the school. Can you give us your best 3-minute speech that would entice any community member to enroll their children with the Eufaula City School System?
I can certainly try. Let me tell you this. I don't remember 3 minutes worth, but I wrote down a bit here. So if you will, and I went commercial as it says. I love Eufaula City Schools. I love Eufaula Schools for all the right reasons. We love our students, and that's why the safety of your child is our #1 priority. Nothing else is close. You want your child challenged academically. So do we. Eufaula City Schools offers an honors program. We have advanced placement classes, and we offer challenging, enriching electives. Eufaula City Schools also offers award-winning career academy programs. We're preparing for our one-to-one iPad initiative. You can't get that just anywhere. You want your child involved, you say? How about one of the most competitive athletic programs in the region and the state? Fine arts are your thing? How about computerized music labs, art, chorus, band, show choir, drama, and on and on? Your children are going to get all the attention they need because of our small class sizes and our modern technology-rich classrooms. So, you want a system you can believe in? Let me tell you just a few of the core beliefs of Eufaula City Schools. We believe your child and every child has worth. We believe everyone is unique and deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. We believe everyone deserves a quality education. We believe everyone deserves a safe and nurturing environment, and that promotes learning. We also believe we have the best staff in the state. Those are just some of our beliefs. Come join us at Eufaula City Schools. You'll love us too. And that's great, because in our Eufaula City Schools, there's plenty to love.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about student discipline. What is your philosophy about discipline in today's school, and how has your discipline philosophy changed as a result of safety concerns?
Without discipline, you have chaos. Discipline begins in the school classroom with a well-designed discipline plan. It follows it's an upward path that it takes, and then administrators are going to have a program for their school. Discipline is more than the punishment. It's like I said, a program and a plan to how the kids are going to behave and that kind of stuff. Now, when those children do get out of line, we've got to be able to step in and do what's necessary to correct them and to change their behavior, to redirect their energies, and whatever it takes, frankly, to make them successful students. most of the time we do that. Unfortunately, sometimes we can't, but we're not going to give up without giving it everything we have. Discipline, as it's changed through the years, is unfortunate that we have to be as conscious in some things now as we didn't. As a youngster, there was a BB gun incident. If I was in school, that wouldn't have been a big deal. But things that weren't such a big deal back in the dark ages, those are big deals now. We've had, I told you, one of the things I manage is our alternative behavior program. Sweetest child on campus came into a class and said she was going to bring a gun and blow everybody up. You can't pass that off anymore. That's how it's changed. In the olden days, it would have been laughed off as being silly. But when, in particular, somebody who is, and I'm telling you, this is maybe the sweetest 10th grader I've ever talked with. When they do something like that, then you've got to wonder, what problem is there? So you have to react to it, and you have to respond to it, and you have to deal with it. So, safety issues through as they've evolved, if you will, have changed a lot of the ways we have to attack it. We went to so many buildings today, we had to get keys out to go in, which is a good thing. Didn't used to have to do that. All right. But a good, solid discipline plan, though, includes all of the above. But it's nothing more than a piece of stuff written on a piece of paper if it's not enforced consistently. I think any educator would tell you that that's where the problems come in with particularly referrals, is quite often is those who don't enforce their discipline plans in a consistent manner. As far as I have a couple of absolutes. One of them is that our staff should be where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be. And another, and I cannot get this over enough to some folks, is a simple thing, but is one of the greatest deterrents, and that's just to have the teachers in the hallway during class changes. I did that for years as a classroom teacher. And if you know your students like you should, you can tell when something's up, okay? But the mere presence is a great deterrent to any mischief that they might be headed toward.
What do you say is the superintendent role, and what is the school board role in formulating educational programs?
I like collaborative decisions, okay? And educational programs, decisions on those, basically, I think, need to be made by the practitioners, okay? Now, that said, if I see something that I think may be good, I want to bring a group of the practitioners, teachers, administrators, we're going to look at things, see if we think it's worth it, our time, our effort, and our money. Because if you cast it out at them, it's not usually a wide enough net to get anything with it, because folks, when things are just thrown at them, they tend to not put as much effort in as if, like I said earlier, the phrase today is skin in the game. If it's something that they've done and been a part of deciding, then they're going to work even harder to help make it successful. Now, obviously, the final decision will rest with the superintendent. And going a little further to the part about the school board, the being an educational decision, an educational program, it's going to need the support of the school board, and the school board is going to need to know about it, because even though you're appointed, you still have a constituency, and they're going to want to know what's this new thing going on over at Moore Middle School. So you've got to be made aware and be knowing what it is. And obviously, if there's money involved, you're going to have to make the ultimate final decision on whether or not to allow the money to be spent for the program. But my role as superintendent would be to develop that team that can closely evaluate any program, scrutinize it, and determine whether it'll work. I've been in this business long enough that I've seen too many programs pass by, and it's like every 5 years here comes another. Zoom, and I think it's it's not fair to our teachers if it's not something that they're willing to work hard to implement and to make successful.
And that takes me into my final question. What is your concept of the relationship that should exist between the superintendent and the board, and how do you plan to keep the board informed?
I'll go back to one thing I did say earlier. There's going to have to be a trust factor. You've going to have to learn to trust me, and it's the same way the superintendent would have to learn to trust the board. And that's something that you build after time. You build on it from day one. And I don't take that lightly. Because when you do place your trust in me, selecting as an appointee or on any specific position, then I've put you in a spot where I've got to be right. Okay, so we're going to have a relationship that's built on trust. It's going to be built on confidence in each other, and build on the goal of reaching what I call my bottom line in the best way we can. That's something that benefits our students. How do I plan to keep the board informed? In this day of technology, it's hard not to. But through direct communication, I think it's probably the best. I am hesitant to, in a lot of situations, to document things because the discovery process phase can be a booger. But I am also a believer in you shouldn't be surprised. Nothing should surprise you. So we're going to find what's the best method to inform the board, to bring it to your attention, the things that you should know. And like I said, I don't know whether that's an email, weekly or whenever anything happens, because you get into those legal technicalities of does that constitute board member meeting and all that kind of stuff. You've seen some of the litigation over that lately. When just like a conference call, is a no-no kind of thing. But there are ways that we'll find to be able to talk, to discuss the issues that we're talking about here.
Okay, well, we thank you.
Thank you.
And you're right. This board does not like to be surprised.
I don't know one that does, and nor should they.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilcox, what is your opinion about the proper relationship of academics versus sports versus other extracurricular activities? Describe your philosophy about middle and high school sports.
I told a story, I think, earlier to the principal and everything. Back in the day, I'm in the press box looking out at one of our games. I count 100 or so involved with a football team. Look over the band, there's another 125 or so, and probably 20 cheerleaders, whatever. Look down the student section, there's a couple hundred folks there. And I realized over 80% of our student population that night was involved in something good. Okay. I counted a big crowd from Eufaula the other night when your Tigers came to play ours and brought home that other win. I think it has a very important role. There are a number of our kids who that's what they stay in school to do. That's the carrot that keeps them doing what they have to do, and with the minimal standards that we have now, it also is helping them learn. Now, all that said, athletics can't be the tail that wags the dog. And if we've reached that point anywhere, then we've lost sight of what we're in the business for. It's great that we have them, and like I said, I think they're very important, but it can't be the thing that runs the show. It's an extracurricular activity, so it has to come secondary to the academic program in the school. And it's great. Like I said, everybody loves a winner. Everybody likes to be involved with the winners, and you can do both. You know, it's done all over at both of them, and so how does that relate to middle school and secondary athletics? I like to see there again as many kids involved in good things as I can get them. And you know, you talk about the fine arts program that y'all have. I can't imagine having that much available to students in the fine arts program. Because, to be honest with you, in the world I've been in most of my educational life, that's the first thing that gets cut, you know. And I applaud the school board for placing the emphasis that it does on it. Because, let's face it, not everybody's a great athlete. But they can be. I've got one right now in the alternative school who played one of the roles last year in Annie, and it looked like he stepped right off Broadway. And he's in alternative school for doing something stupid. But he's not an athlete, but he can sure play a trumpet, and he can sure act. And that's one thing we have. Our new band director has taken it upon himself to offer that. So the fine arts is just you know, so valuable. Is there one more important than the other? I really don't see it, because one is as important to one kid as athletics, or you know, maybe to another. So they you know, from that aspect, carry the own weight. You know, I was in the band for 4 years. Best 4 years of my life going through school. We moved and band wasn't available, so I turned to athletics. But I wasn't near as good an athlete as I was a bandsman, but it was what was there. And had they had a band, I would have gone to that as well. Had we had a theater class or opportunity, I would have done that as well, and played, athletics, because you can do both and do well in both. But I don't see a weight factor where one is more important, because our kids are involved in all of them, and I don't know that, that I wouldn't want to go about saying what one kid does is more important than the other.
Okay. And that answers my second question about your philosophy to fine arts, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for both of those. How would you differentiate between the funding for revenue producing versus non-revenue producing sports or other activities? And the second part of that question is, how would you determine fees to students for participating in extracurricular activities?
This one, question, it really intrigued me in a lot of ways, because the latter part we'll get to that. But as far as revenue producing versus non-revenue producing, there again, what's the value? Okay, and what I mean is how do our students earn or learn, what do they get out of it? Okay, that's what I'm getting around to. What do they get out of it? Go back, I use our biggest high school, Dable, which last year finished, we claimed the #1 public school title in 4A track. Finished second to UMS, right. We don't even have a track. We have a place where there was one going to be, and they go out there and run. They'll practice on it, but we don't have a track. Yet they finished second in the state. Those long jumps and all that kind of stuff. It's amazing. All right. But that said, they don't produce any revenue. But I would say the last 5 years, we probably had 20 kids who've earned college scholarships, through that program. So there's obviously real value in that program for those students, who many of them who wouldn't have gone to college, and it may only get them 2 years. And if that's all they get, then they're ahead of the game, because otherwise they wouldn't have gotten that. But having finished those two, it's often the impetus now to go, let's go find some way to get the others. So like I said, you have to, I think, have to look at the value. And in our case, the value of that track program is immense, because our kids benefit greatly from it. Yeah, we've had some folks to, for instance, sign some football and basketball scholarships, but probably not at the percentage, and as team-wise, we haven't been as successful, even though we've been, fairly successful, but the ultimate success has not been as great. So you have to see what the value is, okay? And then, what does it cost? The issue with the fees is something that, quite honestly, I've never dealt with. That's and with our 3 different schools, that's something that they decide at the school. But I think there again, wouldn't be a decision that'd be totally mine. I would want to get with the principals at each school where this is involved, and the coaches, and let's see about the money situation. See about the fees. What's it going to cost? Are we going to charge? We're going to have to charge so much it's going to be prohibitive to some of our kids who would benefit from it. So I think you've got to do a balancing act there. I do know that I was a cheerleader dad for a couple of years, and I thought I could build another house for what I had to spend, but because we were in on the beginning of a new squad, and that's really expensive, let me tell you. But we could do that, a lot of folks otherwise couldn't have. So, do we want to price them out of something that's going to benefit them in the long run? So that's like the decision that I would definitely go to my administrators and look to them for guidance. And we probably the final answer, because they know their students, they know who can afford what's too much. And like I said, let's don't go to the point where we're hurting somebody by doing it. Because if it has a value, then sometimes we have to step back and maybe absorb some of that cost if our kids benefit greatly from it.
Okay, thank you. High performance by students and accountability are priorities for us. Two-part question. How would you assess the current student performance levels in our system? And how would you assess the effectiveness of our teachers and programs?
The students are doing well. By simple observation today, I can tell you that. Overall, you're doing well because what we have an 88% graduation rate. Don't shoot higher. But that's how you do it. You look at the data. You look at the data to see how they did versus how they did the other day. I heard one today, as a matter of fact, who was doing some data comparisons, who took those students and looked at their data and then took the teachers from last year and the year before and said, come here, find your students, see how they did. So, performance is a data-driven evaluation issue now. And in that regard, that's the one thing that I can say that I truly liked about No Child Left Behind, is that we had to disaggregate the data. That, we didn't come off and just come in with, okay, this class of second graders is at the 60th percentile, which means we're above the national average. Like I said, that doesn't take into consideration those kids who were in the 99th percentile and then those who were in the 20th percentile. So we had to drill down to the individual student. And that's actually the way I would look at it, because I want us teaching to the individual students. And the data will put you to that. And we can determine their progress by how they do progress. It's pretty plainly spoken in that regard. And as far as the teachers and everything are concerned, I'm not really one. I don't want to evaluate them on a test. But we have to evaluate them, of course, by the laws that affect their evaluation. But going deeper, let's look at theirs not in a horizontal aspect, but in I call it diagonal diagnosis of their data. When the kids do here, how they do the next year, how they do the next year. There's what we do prepare them as they moved on. And are we teaching to the individual needs? I am a huge proponent of that, because my needs might be different from Ms. Connors. I may need more attention in math and English, and she's going to be my peer tutor because she's taking care. She knows all of it already. So we've got to look at those students, how they're performing, and that tells us, pretty much how the teachers are doing. And once we do that, are they willing to make any changes to see that something needs to be made? that's again a decision that may be a process that I would initiate, but it's also a decision I would certainly work with local administrators over, because there again they know their staff better than anybody else does.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilcox will stay on curriculum and instructional development. This is a two-part question. What experience have you had aligning educational programs in schools to meet current standards and workforce standards? And the second part is, what should be the superintendent's role in curriculum and instruction and in evaluation of the results of that instructional program?
Most of what I've done has been, there again, not something I've done per se. It's something that I've brought to the table, and I've gotten a team together, for instance, to decide. Bring them up, because there again, you want the buy-in from your practitioners. You want teachers to be able to support your idea. One fair instance, I think, in our system is that I looked one time, and we're, it's a financial decision, to be honest with you, what brought it to my attention. We're paying for 6 different computer programs to create what we call the universal screener. And we're paying for a couple of others to help us take those universal screeners and prescribe a path to success for them. And we're not, when we're doing that, we're not comparing apples to apples. We're comparing what's here with here, and we don't have a clue as to whether either of them are valid. So one of the things I did in there is bring, like I said, folks from the local schools, administrators and teachers, and we evaluate different programs for those kind of things, where to, one, develop that universal screener, and secondly, to prescribe for us a pathway to success. And they all bought in to the one we decided on, and then they carried that back to their school. So that being the case, there again, we're looking at apples to apples, because we're all supposed to be working from the same curriculum guides and pacing charts. And if we don't have any faith that our screener's telling us where the child needs to start, then we don't have any fidelity in our teaching there. But this way, we have this one saying the same thing everywhere, and so we start that as a base and go from there. Curriculum is something that, as you know, can change almost overnight as well. But any time I've been involved in it, it's been in a collaborative effort, because if not fully bought into, you have pockets of weakness, and we can't afford pockets of weakness when we're dealing with kids. We've got to all be on board, on the same board, and working towards the same goal. And if some, choose not to be a part of it, it really makes it difficult for our kids.
Thank you. Technology. ECS will be implementing a one-to-one iPad initiative. How can technology be used as a tool to change the way teachers teach? And explain your view on the best way to integrate technology into the instructional process.
Key word you used is tool. I don't know who said it, but when technology first became big in schools, somebody said, if everybody's afraid teachers were going to be lost because of them. They said, if a computer can replace a teacher, then it should. because, you know, that means we're not getting anything out of the teacher if we get more out of the computer than we did. But it's a tool. And it's a great tool. We saw it used in a couple of places today. I forget what Wacky Wednesday, work day Wednesday or whatever it was. I saw kids just genuinely engaged some stuff on it. So I got fired up. I really wanted to take one of them away and work with it because they were so engaged. And that's the benefit of having them, because it allows you to present in another way that's going to engage the child. Let's face it, you got 28 kids in the class or whatever. Little Johnny, who has given all of us a bad name, little Johnny is the one that's going to be disengaged. He's the one that's going to be sitting in the back of the corner, because I've had them who are some of the best artists in the world, but what they're doing is nothing related to what you're doing. The technology allows them to be challenged in another medium, and like I said, it engages them. I think it also lends itself to greater one-to-one, more one-to-one teaching, because those typically allow individual pace, advancement, that kind of stuff. So you've got to be willing to go work with those students when they need you. Like I said, the practice I saw today was probably need to be videoed and shown as a prime example. And it was not even a regular class. But those, I saw great involvement, great enlightenment by those students, and that's the benefit of having the one-to-one initiatives. You're going to get them more engaged, get them more involved, and then, like I said, our teachers are going to be teaching more one-to-one as well. And I think it's a great thing, because we're finding a medium that frankly excites them more than standing at the board. Yeah, they're doing some of the same things, on that computer that they're doing, we used to do on the chalkboard when it's your turn kind of thing. But it's a great tool to enhance any education environment.
Thank you. Moving on to business and finance. How have you been involved in the ongoing fiscal management? What are your strengths and weaknesses in fiscal management?
I was fortunate enough to be involved for a number of years, from the conception of the budget to its implementation. That included sitting down around the table discussing personnel needs, discussing capital needs. When I got back to my system, we didn't have a single truck in our fleet as used by our maintenance and school bus folks. I guess 15, 18 years old was the newest one, for instance. So we had to, plan for that as well. Plan for buses replacement. And for instance, we had a huge one come up for us. We had 28 buses replaced in 1 year. That makes some folks nervous when it's and some disagreements from between us and the State Department as to whether or not we needed to, but because we were so leveraged, we had to have it by the buses, so we keep the buses that were in the fleet renewal program to be able to pay our annual, payment on the bus loan we had. So from there, to capital, like I said, outlay. Then from monthly budget meetings, to see how we're paying. It's one great thing about the software program that's implemented. It gives you the basically the percentage of the budget item spent, and so you figure out, are we operating as we should? Are we over? Are we under? But I've been involved in all of them. Deciding to cut personnel, deciding to add personnel, addressing whatever issue we happen to happen to have.
Did you want to, any weaknesses in fiscal management or strengths that you'd like to
Oh,
elaborate on?
My weaknesses, I've overcome them mostly. And that's that it took me a while to get away from wanting to spend money when my kids need it. You know, for instance, the requirement of at least having at least a month, reserve. Like, why should I have this in reserve to cover the state when my kids need, a new set of books or something like that, I fight that one. I fight it hard and I push, right now, Bill Clinton is president in our U.S. history books. I fight for those kind of things. I lose, and it's hard to do that. But and I guess I'm sometimes too optimistic that those supporters who are going to, or areas of support that's going to be financial, is not going to be as great as I think it ought to be sometimes.
What experience have you had with facility management and construction?
Okay. Back in, when was it, 98, I think, Governor Sigmund declared war on all portable classrooms. So at that time, I was certified as a capital planner and the facilities management assessor, whatever it was called. With our maintenance director, he was one of the most competent we had, but you had to have a meeting with him every day because he wanted you to know what was going on. So any decision, if we had an issue, facility issue, for instance, next thing he's come by, we've gone and looked it over, made a decision on that. So an ongoing, because ongoing maintenance can be a headache, can be a boondoggle if you don't watch it. And if we don't take care of it ongoing, we know what it's going to be down the road. So, I've been involved in there, made a decision to, make whatever repairs we had to have without going any above my level. As far as construction is concerned, we've had 4 major construction projects that I initiated since my return to the system. The first one was sometime in the past we had some bond money, but we only had enough bond money to build half of a career vocational building. So we had half of a building with pitched roof standing up, on the hill. Kind of hard to explain folks when they come by, But so when I first came back, we leveraged our, what they call it, flex some of our capital outlay money from the state and got enough money to finish the other half. And for the first time in the life of that school, had all the vocational programs under one roof. There had been home ec, or family and consumer sciences was in the hall in high school. At one time, there was an older building, actually in front of the elementary school where the vocational classes were held. We had to tear it down when we did some expansion there. Next thing we had was a fire in one of our schools. It destroyed 4 or 5 classrooms and did just tremendous smoke damage everywhere else. And we had to do a major renovation there because we needed to bring it to code. It was one of those that built so long ago that, for instance, the walls didn't go all the way to the ceiling. And code now, of course, requires that. We had some bond money and were able to finally finish the high school portion of one of our K-12 schools. So we still have a major highway, state highway running between, the campus, on campus, but we, at one time, were having to bus because we couldn't build a new gym or band room. Still haven't, but it's one of the next projects, I think. But beforehand, we were busing back and forth across the highway 22 trips a day. And so, like at least with this, we're able to move all core classes under one roof for the first time. In Dayville, we have an industrial park that currently has 2 or 3 auto parts suppliers located there. And I'm of the opinion then, I am now, that industrial development that was going to benefit our schools was going to take place in that industrial park. It's kind of sits halfway, for instance, between the Hyundai plant in Montgomery and the Kia plant over in West Point. And unfortunately, too many times when people come to look at your communities, they judge the quality of your education by what your building looks like. And ours look rough. There's not been anything done to it except we added an office space on it in the mid-'80s. This is the first major approach to that building in its then 60-year history. We spent a little over $6 million, and that folks said that's a lot. And they also would say you can build a new one for that, but you can't, as you well know. We invested $6 million through QSCAB, interest-free bond money, and renovated the school, and it looks like a brand new one. We're able to go in, and the hallways before you could almost reach one fingertip to the other and touch both walls, but now there's actually room for students to pass back and forth in there. So, and all the decisions to do those were pushed by me and were approved by our board, and I think we're better off for it because our kids grow up and are being taught in facilities, one, they can have pride in and take ownership of. And I've seen that makes a huge difference to students. Something that this is, we had to really take students take ownership of their school, and graffiti, the trash, that kind of stuff. It's just not there. It's kind of amazing, really.
I've got the last 4 questions. We'll start with leadership, administration, and personnel. Describe your leadership and management style, and what methods have you found to be most effective in supervising and building rapport with administrators and employees?
In education these days, there's a bunch of catchphrases and buzzwords and that kind of stuff. And I don't use a lot of them because they're nothing but catchwords and buzzwords. But because I found out I was a servant leader before that became one of the popular phrases. In that my reputation and my system now is that if you come to me, you're going to get one thing. You're going to get and need something, and it's genuine. You're going to get my best effort to be able to find and provide it for you. And if I can't get it, it simply can't be done. And I think you have to be that. I think you have to be that type of leader to your administrators, your staff, whomever. Whatever I can get my people that's going to help them do a better job for our kids, I'm going to work toward that. Otherwise, the leadership style that I would use is there again, one, the collaboration. Because we're not in this alone, and we've all got to be able to do that which we're asking other people to do. So I'm a collaborative leader. I like to build consensus, and And again, like I said, get that skin in the game so that they have a reason to make it work, and not look for reasons to keep it from doing such. There again, you have to build, and it takes some time, that trust factor as well. You know, I can sit here and tell you that my people trust me and that I'm going to do the best I can for them, and they do, but, you know, that's my word right now. My actions will show differently, or not differently, will show that when I'm given the chance. I'm not a I don't want to use the term derogatorily, but I'm not a drill sergeant, you know, and there are some who aren't, and they maybe get results, but I'm not real sure how effective the overly aggressive approach is. Now, that said, as another popular phrase of mine is, don't mistake my kindness for weakness, because if necessary, then we have to go toe to toe, we will. You know, I've had to recommend that, for instance, employees be put on leave. Didn't bother me a minute, because they were saying, doing things that were threatening the security of my kids. And you know, if you have to make that kind of quick, immediate decision, you know, if a child in harm's way, I don't have a problem at all taking care of it right then. But for the most part, I want the decision to be otherwise, you know, stuff that we've all agreed on. And I don't want that to sound like a you know, cop out to being afraid to make any decision, because I'm not. But in this business, there again, based on my now 28 years of experience, that's how you get the most out of it, when you've got everybody working toward the same goal. You do that by building that consensus, and I don't really care that I get any credit. It doesn't bother me, for instance, to hire folks that are smarter than me, you know, to do other things. You know, the superintendent can't be the point person on everything, so I don't have, my leadership style is one where I don't have to come up with every idea. Because if I do, we're in trouble, because the support staff is not there, you know. But based on what I've seen here so far, the staff is here and is capable. So they're likely to have you know, better ideas. I'm not, you know, the sole owner of ideas, great ideas, big and small. I'm going to be the leader that's going to help bring those great ideas to fruition, and they're going to help me. They're going to help show the way.
What strategies would you use to recruit quality personnel, and especially minority personnel?
That's it, recruit. Go to the recruiting fairs or college career days, whatever it is they're calling them. You know. I like to be seen present at them, whether I know I'm going to be able to hire anybody or not. I like, to be honest with you, when I can, I like to go and be able to offer really quality human beings a pretty sure thing. You know, that comes after a while when we develop the trust and everything. But because there are some who you just really don't want to get away from you. The most successful recruiting efforts that we had were recruiting very early and get those good candidates even before, you know, committed even before they were out of school. You know, like I said, if we couldn't offer at the recruiting fair, get them in for take an application. You know, they didn't leave without an application to our system. If they had time, we got them to sit there and complete it. We took it back and, you know, would processes and go through all the steps that we had to take, and we'd have them there and interview before long. And like I said, at that point, we still felt that way. We would offer a job, but like I said, there have been some great teachers hired late, but there have been more great ones hired early. And I think that's the best way to do it. As far as minorities, I don't think you can be at the schools enough to recruit. I just, I want to develop an internship program with some. I think that's another great way that you get people into your schools and they see what's going on there and they want to be a part of it. Secondly, is I don't know if we have a future teachers organization here or not. I'll be honest with you, I was in future teachers when I was in high school. Didn't have a clue, didn't have any plans to be a teacher. But just expose some of those, through one, obviously it's not a career tech platform for that, pathway for that, but if we don't have it already, let's start encouraging, and growing our own, for lack of a better term. But otherwise, you got to go get them. Go get them. They're there. There's some quality graduates now because, for the most part, most colleges are they're being more selective in their admissions to colleges of education, and they're being more blunt with some of their students once they get in there. For instance, I know two of my daughter's great friends were asked to leave the education program at her college because they didn't pass muster. And so the quality we're getting available to us is much better than what when I graduated. I was hired early, by the way.
What would be your plan to recruit, train, and evaluate administrators in our school system?
Yeah, I briefly mentioned to grow your own in the teachers. And I really like that idea from an administrative standpoint. We have the greatest turnover in our system, for instance, in the Dable schools. Actually in administrators and in staff. At our two K-12 schools, there's hardly an opening because those are folks who come back to teach. Those are folks who come back and grow through the ranks and become teachers. I really would like to see the development of an administrative mentorship. I know you have staff at every school, I'm sure, who has their administrative degree, but they really don't have the opportunity to use it just yet. And as you know, there's just nothing like practice, and actually using your skills to become better and become more qualified. So let's look at that mentorship. I really would like to see something along that line. Like I said, secondly, of course, like I said, grow our own as much as we can, and I have been known to recognize talent at other conferences and that kind of stuff, and I find somebody good or that I think would be a good fit for us, I'm not above going after them. If they work in UFAL or wherever, if they're good, I want them, and so I got two really good ones out of Montgomery, two of the best they had. I think both of them were principal of the year at one time. So, in our, it's difficult a lot of times. Like I said, David, we have not a whole lot to offer in that town for involvement, purposes. You know, we know educators can't really afford to buy those big houses on the lake. So a lot of ours, originate out of Auburn, and through there. But from the administrative standpoint, you depend so much on those looking for a position, and like I said, hopefully, if you decide on them, they mesh well. But I think when you grow your own, it's the benefits there are tremendous.
All right, this concludes the interview questions. Are any questions you'd like to ask us, or do you have a closing comment that you would like to make, or any additional information you'd like to share with the board that would be valuable to us?
First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I really want to thank you for the opportunity to spend time with us at schools today. And I had the meeting with the administrators after it, and I was very sincere, and I hope they understand that regardless of what I get this, I really pray that they continue doing what they're doing. They're doing some great things for your kids. There was not a place I went that I wasn't impressed with. I don't know how Ms. Susan Webb does as well as she does, but she was fantastic in this process and really made everything much easier for me. If selected, I'm in this for the long haul. I think I'm able to bring a fresh perspective to Eufaula City Schools, and together we can make something that's good even better, make it great. I know there's tremendous pride, and there should be, that this is the first city school system in the state. I don't have any goal any less than being the best. And that's my goal for what we do. I want us to be, and I mentioned when folks start talking about the elite school systems, they just roll off their tongues. My plan would be to come here, make a difference, and retire somewhere way down the road. Like I said, there were some other opportunities to apply at the same time that I didn't, because number one, this place obviously isn't broken, okay, and like I said, with a bit more, we've got an 88% graduation rate. With a bit more, we can get into the 90s. So what we have to, let's look and see why we don't have that, and then let's go address those things. I want to be the one that helps to make that happen, and I think we can. We consider it an honor, privilege to work with this board, with the administrative staff that I met today, with the teachers, and I spend a lot of time in the pre-K. I can tell you that they love you to death anyway. I am a school visitor. They'd all learn who I am and know me by sight. But I want a chance to make something good, really good, even better. I think I can do that, and with the support of the board and support of the leadership here. But I do appreciate the opportunity, and it's been a great day.
Mr. Wilcox, thank you very much. I would like to invite you to stay for a little while.
Sure.
After the meeting has been adjourned. We may have some people that want to visit with you and just get to know you a little bit. With that said, if there's no other comments or questions from the board, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.